Hello, and welcome to the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation Young Farmers and Ranchers Collegiate Discussion Meet. I'm Taylor Roberts of Washington County, and I will be serving as room chair for this round. At this time, out of respect for all the competitors, please turn off your cell phones. Also, please keep distractions as minimal as possible to allow for full concentration from the competitors. There will be no interacting with the audience, and no additional information is allowed at the discussion table. Remember to have fun and make it a pleasant experience for all those who participate. Serving as moderator for this round is Macy Norda. Serving as timer for this round is Jada Kilpack. The judges, time, and competitors have been briefed as to the rules of the competition. I yield control of this competition to Macy.
Thank you, Taylor. The competitors have been briefed on the competition and realized that their general discussion should be directed at each other rather than the audience. As moderator, I will not attempt to control or direct this discussion. Remember, this discussion is meant to simulate a committee meeting, not a panel discussion. As such, I will not intervene unless or disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a congenial manner. The competitors are Cody Cunningham, JC Fuller, Will Brackett, and Abby Faria. This round's question will be number 3. There are numerous resources available to support seamless farm and ranch succession planning. How can Farm Bureau help increase understanding, access, and utilization of tools and resources that help facilitate the smooth transition of the land and capital from one generation to the next? Again, there are numerous resources available to support seamless farm and ranch succession planning. How can Farm Bureau help increase understanding and access and utilization of tools and resources that help facilitate the smooth transition of land and capital from one generation to the next? We will begin this discussion with 1 minute of quiet time, during which each competitor will be able to prepare their 30-second opening statement. Following the opening statements, they will have 20 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1-minute closing statement. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. At this time, competitors, you now have 1 minute to prepare your opening statements. Time has been called. Competitors, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds has elapsed by holding the red card. You may begin.
Growing up on my family's ranch, one of the fond memories that I have was watching Roy Rogers and John Wayne movies, and I remember thinking that was something that was really distant and that cowboys weren't actually real. And now that I'm in college and getting closer to graduating from college, the thought of actually being able to come back to my family ranch and maybe even run it someday brings succession planning to the forefront of my mind and makes me realize how important that is. So I'm really excited to be able to talk with this group today on some ways that the Farm Bureau can help.
My family in Enterprise, Oregon runs a small cattle farm, cattle ranch, and dryland farm operation. When I was a little girl, all I ever wanted to do was run a combine with my grandpa. As I've gotten older, we have decided to do some succession planning because my grandpa is getting older and can no longer do as many things. I'm excited to discuss with this board some ways that we can use Farm Bureau and my home operation to make that succession planning and lineage to continue our farm easier.
"We'll cross that bridge when we get there" is a common sentiment among farmers and ranchers when considering succession planning. However, the time necessary to consider this complex and emotional issue necessitates immediate action. Today, I'm excited to discuss solutions such as Farm Bureau helping to provide legal access, promoting insurance plans as part of succession planning, and establishing a mediation or mentorship program within the Farm Bureau.
Growing up, I have had to watch my family's ranch be split 5 ways in between 5 different siblings. The waters have been murky, and there have been several fights and arguments because we did not have a secure plan on what was going to happen. That just leads us to the idea today that ranch succession planning and farm succession planning is so important in fostering our family holds. I'm so excited to talk about some new ideas such as 3-minute succession plan surveys and new innovative ideas to make this process more seamless and how Farm Bureau can help.
You have heard the competitors' opening statements. The competitors may now proceed with the discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion towards your fellow panel members.
You know, succession planning is something that's on the forefront of all of our minds, and like JC said earlier, that's something that gets really easy to put off. I know that my family is maybe kind of what falls into that "we'll cross that bridge when we get there" category. Cody, you had talked a little bit about your family has kind of already started that process. I guess could you give us a little bit of background on what that process looks like, just to give us some background?
Of course. So we are maybe sort of fall into the space of "we'll cross that bridge when we get there." Well, that bridge is here. And we didn't necessarily do enough planning beforehand. And so we've been kind of scrambling to get some things in place. My family's personal ranch, my aunt, which is my dad's sister, she has been working hard to learn some of the books. She went to U of I and got an ag business degree. She has a minor in accounting, and so she's been doing some of the books and sitting with my grandpa and learning what things we need to do for the CMB program and what things we need to do for the hay crops and the alfalfa and the mustard seed. And so she's been doing that, and my dad has been taking over some of the management side of things. So like when cows need to be moved in certain places and what grazing concepts we use and those types of things. And so my grandpa has been working with both of them very closely throughout the past couple of years. And as time has gone on, my dad has taken over more of the management, and grandpa's been more focused on some of the book side because that's maybe a place where my family struggles a little bit. And so my Aunt Kira has been helping do that. And she's been helping use her ag business degree, and then he's been implementing some years of worth of knowledge and explaining to her how those two things can work together.
I'm so glad that your family has been trying to kind of navigate these waters and is getting on the other side of it. And I know you said your family kind of struggles with the book side, and I think that's something that a lot of us in the ag industry kind of can struggle with a little bit because we're more literate in the boots on the ground type agriculture. Just another place that I've seen the issue is our neighbors, an elderly couple, they kind of ran into some health issues and both passed away. And now the siblings have had just such a big argument that they're willing to put the whole ranch up for sale than deal with this. And so it really is such a big issue, and it's really enlightening to hear that your family is doing some good things to help there. Today we really want to capitalize on how Farm Bureau can help with this farm and ranch succession and how they can make it a little more seamless in that area. And we need to have hard conversations. That is something that is so difficult for us to have hard conversations in our family because we don't want to think about that time. It's really scary. And I think an idea that could really be helpful with Farm Bureau is perhaps highlighting some of our ag mediation services. So this isn't something that Farm Bureau offers right now, but it is something that the USDA has, and it's kind of a middleman that is there to start some of these hard conversations and kind of be a translator in how our laws work and how some of our succession planning might start. JC, do you have anything to add on maybe where you've seen issues with this ranch succession and how we can maybe use services?
Absolutely. I love that you brought up the mediation service. That's something I'm also really excited to talk about. My family hasn't quite moved into this stage yet. My dad is still going strong, taking care of all the cattle by himself, and where my sister and I are still school-aged, we're not quite to that stage yet, but it's something that we're wanting to keep up on and make sure we have the tools when the time comes to complete this plan. And so this is something that I'm excited to talk about because I think a mediation service or a moderator would be very helpful for a lot of families, especially, Cody, like you mentioned, where we have multiple siblings taking over an operation. What I'm wondering is if we could take this idea that you said another agency has already established and turn it into something Farm Bureau sponsored that we could take even further. So I'm thinking maybe we could find some of our Farm Bureau members who have already completed and already established their succession plan and allow them to mentor another generation of farmers who will be turning their land, their operations over to their children. What are your guys' opinions on making this work and how we can expand this and make it truly Idaho Farm Bureau?
So one thing that I was kind of interested in, I guess I haven't really heard a whole lot about the ag mediation services, so I'm excited to learn more about that. My question is what does that look like? What type of people is that? Is it more mentors, so people that have gone through the process already and can help mentor you through that, or is it more on the lawyer side of thing? Now, I can't get too excited about bringing a lawyer into family matters, but like if you look at it less in an aspect of we're trying to win a fight and more of it like we need somebody who knows all the laws and all the taxes and the insurance and all the complexities that comes with succession planning. So I guess what is that balance, do you think, that between lawyers and those mentors as well?
Absolutely. And I am not completely educated on what the current status quo is of what the definition of what these people are offering and what their services are. I do understand that they are literate in kind of the legal happenings, but also the communication side of it more of. But I think that's kind of the beauty of what we can look at today. If Farm Bureau were to take this, like JC said, and have more of the testimonial side, we can make it more relatable and less of that scary bringing in a lawyer to your local operation. Farm Bureau can really capitalize on just the idea of this and develop it into something that we can foster and care for, just like Will has set up, something that we are more comfortable with and something that's able to relate to more of the family and be a real communication threshold right there. And that kind of brings me to another idea. I have seen this online in an article just as an idea with succession planning in general, is starting those conversations. And one idea that I found is making a 3-minute succession plan survey. And so what this is it's an online survey. You take it on your own time and you answer like 3 basic questions. I think one was, do you want your family to have your land when you pass away? And a couple other very broad questions. And the idea of this wasn't necessarily to get the answer right then, but it's to start the conversation. Because if we have these answers on paper before you go into the meeting, that means that you can't back out and say, well, no, actually, I didn't say that. I don't want to do that. We have this right here, and it's in your mind. And so it's something super easy that you can do on your own before you have those really scary in-person conversations.
Along with starting the conversation, Abby, my collegiate chapter up at U of I is looking to plan a succession planning workshop for the students in the college, because many of us, that's our goal, is to go back home and take over our family farms and ranches. And so it's important that we are seeing as students and seeing our parents transition into leadership at our home farms and ranches, how important it is to have the succession planning in place, because maybe, like you said, we waited till the bridge got there. And so we're seeing the importance of that now as 19 and 20-year-olds. And so we're seeing, we're talking about starting those conversations now rather than waiting 30 years to do that. And I think that's really important. So using the collegiate levels and the YF&R groups that are able to maybe have already gone through some of that succession planning like you were talking about earlier, come in and talk to the collegiate level students that are planning to go back to their farms and ranches, to utilize those resources and have the college kids learn from them on how to succession plan with their parents.
That's such a fantastic idea. I love that you guys are capitalizing on the energy of the next generation to take this difficult issue and make it a little bit easier. That ties into another option that I wanted to discuss. At the Idaho Cattle Association convention, I was able to talk to a Farm Bureau insurance representative, and he emphasized to me the importance of having an insurance plan as part of your succession plan. And so I think that ties into your idea of a workshop. Maybe we could invite these Farm Bureau insurance representatives to attend these workshops and emphasize to the generations and who are passing on these farms the importance of establishing good insurance and making sure your next generation understands all the ins and outs of that without having to bring in a lawyer, because we know that, as you mentioned, that probably wouldn't be the best idea for our families. What are your guys' opinions? Do we think we could make this work?
I think we can definitely make this work, but I think that there could be just as good or also better places to have these people in. I think like the college is such a great setting there, and in finding a way to start those conversations with our producers too, because a lot of them probably have an insurance right now, and that's where it gets tricky of digesting what kind of insurance they have. And so do you have any ideas of any other places where we could see these people educating them other than on a college level?
I might have some insight as far as this goes. I think that all of these are great ideas, and there is some potential to maybe use all of them, right? I really like what Cody was talking about as far as the workshops at the collegiate level, just in the fact that if we start those conversations now while we're still in college, like we might not see the effects of them for another 5, 10, 20 years, but it gives us some buy-in. So it gives us young agriculturists some hope that we do have a place to go after college. Like it's not just this overwhelming thing that we have to accomplish. But then on the other side of things too, using some of this professional help as well. So the point that I made earlier about the lawyers, like maybe not looking at that in a bad light, but using their help. So not using their help to try and settle disputes, but more ask for their help on how do we do this legally? How do we make sure that we're not going to be losing money with taxes and insurance and whatever else? Have a good relationship with your insurance agent, and just make sure that there's a policy out there that's going to make sure that there's a good succession plan. So I guess my question for you guys is, how do we take all of these ideas and all of this wealth of knowledge and put them together in a way that's accessible for all?
I think the thing that's super important is to remember that not every county has a college campus. Like I was talking about the collegiate meetings, yeah, that's great. But every county has a county farm bureau office, and county meetings and those kinds of things. And I think that's where we need to focus our wealth of knowledge into, is those county farm bureau meetings. And maybe then you can invite the high school students that are there, because the younger you can start those conversations, the earlier, I think is super important. And so that's, with Farm Bureau being a grassroots organization, I think it's really important that we start at the county level rather than try to like implement things at a state level and then let it trickle down. I think it's important to let one county try it, or a couple counties, and then let the whole state see that this is working for them, and this is how producers in their county are being better prepared for their future and for their future generations. And then the whole state can take lead after that.
I agree. Sorry, JC, one second. Piggybacking off of what Cody kind of said, and Will's question, how we can combine all this information into one. And I think this is something where it is such a big issue. I mean, a majority of our ag population is over the age of 53, according to the USDA. And I think Farm Bureau could really allocate some service time and some of their membership to creating perhaps just a pamphlet that sits in their office that starts that conversation, that has phone numbers for some of the people who know the policy, has phone numbers for these ag mediators, and has some questions to maybe ask at your dinner table. And if we have somebody to create a nice pamphlet, we could even put a link on the website. There's really just a lot of opportunity, but we need somebody to sit down and allocate a lot of time to get us a good foundation, because to my understanding there isn't a really easy access support to get to all of that. And if we have like the information to all of these people, such as phone numbers, emails, questions, I think it could be really handy for the producer. JC, what were you going to say?
Thank you. I appreciate both of your perspectives on this question. Will, to go back and answer your question, I understand the perspective on consolidating all of these resources that our members can use. However, I wonder if it wouldn't be a better idea to separate them. Maybe we can provide that legal access for a family that requires the legal access, who has a complex operation. Maybe we provide the mediation service for a family who has no idea where to start. So I'd like your guys' perspective on how maybe separating this would be a better option for our federation. And I think one action step we could start with, Abby, is utilizing your survey. Maybe we could create this survey so that it would direct our members to the specific type of resources that they need. Do you guys think that this would work? I think it would be a great idea.
I think I was looking at the State Farm Bureau page earlier today, and I was looking at, sometimes the website is super hard to navigate, and I think that's what turns off a lot of maybe producers that are not actively on at the internet, because it's not easy to see and like easy to find links and all sorts of things like that. And I think that would be maybe a start, like Abby was talking about, putting things on the website, but it needs to be navigable first before we do something like that. And so I think it's important that if we do separate things like that, rather than addressing each producer individually, because that can take up a lot of time, maybe separating the contents and saying like, this is content for if you're going through this type of succession planning, or if you're going through this type of succession planning, these are the links you're going to want to click. These are the things you're going to want to think about. And I think that would be important to have on the website, as long as it's easy to find, because when you're succession planning, you're going from an older generation to a younger generation, and sometimes there's a gap between the communication style there.
And that's a great point. And that kind of made me think of something when you talk about separating this all out. So earlier this morning I looked up succession planning and what the American Farm Bureau Federation had to say about that. And there are some articles and resources that are definitely beneficial, but there's not necessarily a database or anything that provides contact as far as that goes. So you had talked about separating some of this information, JC, and I don't know that you necessarily need to separate the lawyers and all of that. I think what would be even more beneficial is if we create a separate website or database. And I'm saying this knowing that I don't necessarily have the technical skills to do that, but I'm sure we could find somebody that does, where we can create a database so that somebody can look up succession planning. Boom, this database pops up, and it can have 4 bars at the top where it says legal help, insurance, like the 4 main categories or 5 or however many categories you want, just to make it so that it's accessible for our agriculturists. But I think that a lot of our supporters are going to be extremely interested in this as well, because we'd be generating some business for them as well, whether that's your ag mediation services, your lawyers, your accountants, your insurance agents, whatever else. It would be easy to get their input on this as well, just because it would be mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. I think, JC, you had a great idea. And I think interpreting it, like, we're kind of combining them a little bit, because we're not separating them into 2 totally different things, but we're creating categories within one. I think we need one big headline that says succession planning, and then under that we have kind of our subcategories. And we've talked a lot about how the website might kind of have some issues too. So that's why I think it's important that we do invest a little bit of time and money into creating a hard copy flyer that can sit in a Farm Bureau County office. And like we said, we really have our strong relationships on a county level, and that's where we're going to be able to really trust the people that we're with. So I think it's really important that we do talk about that hard copy and having that.
Yeah, Abby, I totally agree with you. I know my grandpa values paper more than any sort of technology he has in his house. So I think making sure that we have those types of paper that they can actively highlight and pencil mark on and annotate and all the things is super important. I personally like having a paper copy as well. And so I think sometimes staring at a screen gives you a headache for so long. And so I think that's super important. I like that you brought that up because I think we sometimes get so focused on the website and the value of having the modern technology, but we lose the value of having just a piece of paper that can never crash and doesn't go missing randomly sometimes.
I think that brings up a very good point, and I think that could be something that could be integrated into having both. So we have a website so that if people they don't even have a place to go, like they don't even know how to get into contact with their local county farm bureau office. They can type this in. This website pops up. It shows all the local county farm bureaus, all of the help that they can get, but then also create, like what you were talking about, a printout so that we're able to target multiple audiences and from different generations as well.
I think a small detail we could add in here, myself, I'm not the most technologically capable. And so I think if we created this webpage, which I'm really excited about the progress we're making on this idea, but have a specific printout button, I think that would be able to help a lot of families. I know my family has multiple junk drawers around our house where papers routinely get lost. And so being able to print that out again, I think would also tie into what you mentioned, targeting multiple audiences, making sure we're reaching our online audience and then having that paper copy available multiple times if needed without having to make a trip into our County Farm Bureau office. I think that's a small detail we could take care of in the creating of this webpage that would actually add a lot of value.
I really like that idea. And one final thought, I know we're almost out of time, but the idea of losing paper, losing the thought of this is something so valid. I know my family is the same way. That's where something, if we were to take this survey and get a hold of their email, we could send a follow-up email. Like, how did you think of this survey? Did you have that conversation? And maybe send that like a week or a month later so that we're following up with these people. And I think if we have an email or a way to contact them, that's a way that we are doing our part as Farm Bureau to ensure that we're not just losing them in the crowd and we're not just handing them that paper and kind of hoping for the best. And it's just a way of holding them accountable too, because we know they've taken this survey, that we have their email, just another tool in our toolbox.
That's a fantastic point. And as I was meeting with my county farm bureau to prepare for this, they also noted the importance of keeping our members accountable to the succession plan.
Please prepare your closing statements. I ask that the audience remain silent for 1 minute to aid the competitors in their preparation. Please put down your pencils, and in voluntary order, please stand and give your 1 minute closing statement.
In this discussion, we covered a lot of country. We talked about the importance of succession planning and how this is not something we want to wait until later on down the road. We'll deal with that when we get there. We want to deal with that right now. We want to deal with that today, just so that we have a plan and also to help our younger generation have some buy-in and some accountability. We also talked about how we can do this by utilizing some supporting industry professionals and creating some sort of media to connect those industry professionals. I believe that this discussion is going to make it so that we can take those John Wayne movies and we can take those little kids and make it so that they can have their dreams come true. Thank you.
My family farm and ranch could greatly benefit from the conversation we had today. Something like a website, I think, is extremely important for the upcoming generation. I think it's also important to remember that hard copies are most valuable sometimes, and that we need those in our operations. I think it's important that we remember that we need to start small and grow from there. With Farm Bureau being a grassroots organization, it's important to remember that we start with the young and grow up from there into our American corporation and federation.
The reality is the future is always going to be scary, but it doesn't have to be. It is so important that we are having some of these hard conversations at a young age. And today we have talked about so many great opportunities to make this ranch and farm succession just a little bit easier with the help of Farm Bureau. We've heard from Cody about how the U of I is already doing a workshop, and taking advantage of these opportunities is so crucial. And we've talked a lot today about creating a website or some sort of pamphlet to really make this a lot more user-friendly and to really help our fellow producers in these hard times of figuring out what is going to happen in the future. I know that my family could have really used some of these resources, just like Cody had said earlier, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this educational talk about it today.
We've seen today that crossing the bridge when we get there is no longer feasible. Today, we've discussed solutions to this issue, such as creating a separate website for Farm Bureau members who are seeking support in succession planning. We've noted the importance of using paper copies and making those available to our members, and including the access to legal support and promoting insurance plans as part of our succession plan. With these tools and the specific action steps that we've developed today, our Farm Bureau can take steps towards providing these resources for our members and utilizing the benefits of our grassroots organization so that every family has the tools that they need.
Let's give these competitors a round of applause. At this time, I will return control of this competition to the room chair.
Thank you, Macy, for a well-run competition. The judges for today's competition are Amy Mitchell, Alan Clark, and Joy Rieger. Thank you, judges and competitors. Now I would ask the judges to report to the tabulation room. We would like the contestants to make a brief statement about him or herself.
I guess I can start us off here. I'm kind of the odd man out here. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm Will Brackett. I'm from Three Creek, Idaho. I'm currently studying animal science at the University of Idaho, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Hi there, my name is Abby Faria. I'm originally from Ola, Idaho, and I'm currently at the College of Southern Idaho studying general agriculture, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Hi everybody, my name is JC Fuller. I grew up just outside of Twin Falls on my family's farm and ranch, building fence and showing cattle. I am currently studying agriculture at the College of Southern Idaho, and I plan to transfer and complete a degree in agricultural education when I finish there.
Hi everyone, my name's Cody Cunningham. I'm from Enterprise, Oregon, not Idaho. I am studying ag business up at the University of Idaho. I'm a sophomore there, and I grew up on a small family farm and ranch. We raise cattle, grow wheat, and I grew up showing cattle and hogs.
Awesome, one more round of applause. Thank you all for being such a good audience. We appreciate your interest in the competition and your support for the competitors.